It starts with
Hello. Welcome back to Two Nates on Sports. My name is Nathan Simmons, and with me, as always, is Nathan Kwan. Let's dive right into talking about MLB. So we're right after the All-Star break, and it's beginning to look like the Rangers are going to have to sell. Specifically, let's talk about what happened this past week, which was not great, to put it one way. They got swept by the Baltimore Orioles in a 4-game stand. Definitely not a good sign. I mean, the biggest problem wasn't just pitching, but really the hitting. Really, outside of Mike Napoli and to some extent Shin-Soo Choo, very few of the Rangers hitters showed up during the series. Specific, Nomar Mazara was a huge disappointment. I believe he only hit like .086 this past week. Rugi Odor wasn't necessarily all that much better. Although that being said, like we've become used to his sort of like disappointment. I mean, I would say probably the two most disappointing performances this past week have to go to kind of Adrian Beltre and Elvis Andrus, who we expected to be like the steady veteran presence on this team, but I mean, at the same time, like they just didn't really follow through. Now, that being said, to at least focus on the positives, Mike Napoli is having a great July just overall. He has 7 home runs, 13 RBI, and 9 runs with a 1.072 OPS for the month, and really has been hitting quite well since May 1st with a .866 OPS overall. It's just that awful April has really been dragging him down. But unfortunately, really, they needed to have taken at least half the games that they did this past week, and they didn't even, I mean, they did at least win the series against Kansas City, who's a very good team and very much in the hunt for the wild card. But I mean, getting swept by a Baltimore team that has a terrible starting rotation, I mean, that does not bode well. And we're beginning to see more and more rumors about how they are shopping Yu Darvish. And that really, really makes me sad, honestly. I mean, we'll talk more. The deal does finally go down. But I'll reserve my emotional talk for then, I guess, which I guess is silly also, just because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just sports. And I mean, it's not like he's going to disappear forever, you know.
What are your thoughts at this point on the team? So the Rangers, they won last night in Tampa. It was a huge win, but they're 4.5 back. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams ahead of them. What would you do?
I mean, I would do what they're doing right now, which is, or at least what John Daniels is doing, which is essentially just shopping everyone that he can. And that's not too young. I mean, the big problem right now is just that, like, from all intents and purposes, like you can't really say that the young core that they have locked in is one that you can really depend on. I mean, like if your young core is really Joey Gallo and Rugi Odor and Nomar Mazara, I think the big problem is that those three seem to be much more focused on hitting home runs than necessarily trying to get the ball in play and wasting the opportunity for something to happen. This is just such a frustrating team to follow because of that. And also at the same time, if that is your young core, Yu Darvish in and of himself, and a lot of people that are older than it, like also like Cole Hamels as well, they don't really line up with the window for those core players. And so really the best way for you to go get, and on top of that too, like in the minor league system, you don't really have any like top pitching prospects that could conceivably come in and replace Yu Darvish. So especially if you're worried that you can't re-sign him in the offseason, the best way to maybe get someone that could replace him is to trade for said prospect. Now, obviously, the big problem is whether or not like one of these teams is willing to part with said top prospect for Yu Darvish. I mean, like Yu Darvish, if he does go on the trade market, would be the best pitcher available, best starting pitcher available. So, I mean, more than likely, yeah, someone's going to, and especially since Quintana was able to bring back like the 5th best overall prospect in MLB, and Yu Darvish has at least been performing fairly well this season. I mean, he performed amazingly last night with 12 strikeouts, you know, only giving up 3 runs in 8 innings. Like, I mean, like this, he's not a bad player at all. I mean, he should be able to get at least one top 10 prospect if a team that needs starting pitching help has that. But I mean, we still don't really know.
Yeah, I agree. I think your thoughts about the window potentially closing. I remember what the Astros did after they went to the World Series in 2005. They spent the next 3 or 4 years trying desperately to hang on, and they traded away pretty much their whole farm system to try to hang on for some veterans, and it didn't end up working out. We saw what happened to the Phillies. They tried to hang on for many years before they finally realized that they had to rebuild. So if I'm the Rangers, they're not that many games out, but there's so many teams ahead of them that it would be smart for them just to retool this season and regroup and see what happens next season, because I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, in all fairness to this regime, I guess, was able to build a contending team for the past like 6 years, and even still, like, they're not that far out, I guess, of the hunt. They're much farther out than they should be. If they really feel like that they can make it. But I mean, like, I've seen stranger things. Like, well, not the show, but I mean, like, I remember 2011 where Boston and the Atlanta Braves both like lost out on the wild card on the last day of the season. Crazier things have happened. It's just, I don't see it with this team. This team just doesn't. They know what this are if they don't win more. Like, if they don't win more, they're going to lose out on what I presume someone they like in Yu Darvish and someone they know is a good player, and yet, like, they can't seem to just turn it around. And the problem is that, like, yeah, maybe they're all having like slumps, but like, this isn't the first time this season where they've all multiple important position players have had huge slumps at the plate at the same time. Like, this hitting has been, quite frankly, kind of atrocious at times, and it looks like they haven't been able to find ways to solve it. I mean, it's so frustrating. Now, in lighter news, Beltre is now 14 hits away from 3,000. If you haven't started watching him now, start watching him now. And then Jake Diekman threw his first bullpen session Thursday. It's his first activity since ulcerative colitis surgeries. Hopefully he gets back soon, but unfortunately it looks like it might be too little too late for him. What about the Astros?
Yeah, so the Astros remain the top team in the American League. They are playing about 500 basically the last month, and that's to be expected given the starting pitching injuries that they've had. They're getting Colin McHugh finally back today. He's going to start in Baltimore, his first start of the season. It's going to be good to see him out there. The offense continues to be pretty solid. Jose Altuve is off the charts. I think he's reached base in 28 consecutive games. The team right now is on a doubles streak that I think they're second all time. I think they have
54
games in a row with a double, which is absurd, but that's basically what's carrying the team right now. Dallas Keuchel is looking to come back next weekend, so we'll see what happens with all the starters back. I still expect general manager Jeff Luhnow to make a deal for a starting pitcher and or a reliever. This past week, Sonny Gray was in the news, Justin Verlander and Justin Wilson of the Tigers. I've heard Brad Hand of the Padres. The offense got dealt a blow a little bit last week. Carlos Correa has a torn ligament in his thumb, so he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, which most Houston sports fans went, oh my God, here we go again, because this is what seems to happen when everything is going well. There's going to be an injury at an inopportune time. Reminds me of the mid-2000s Rockets with Yao and Tracy. But hopefully, I mean, the Astros have enough depth that they don't need to make a deal for another bat. Marwin Gonzalez should fill in at shortstop. Colin Moran got called up from AAA. He hit a home run last night. So they should be okay. If Correa comes back in September and has a couple weeks to reacclimate, get his timing back, and get ready for the playoffs, that's the hope there for Correa. But no more injuries at this point would be very helpful, because I think this team has had its share of injuries, especially in that starting rotation. And another humorous incident this past week was Carlos Beltran, who hasn't really played much in the field since May. The team held a funeral for his glove. So Beltran is a 4-time Gold Glove winner, but he's 40 now, and he's basically just been a designated hitter this year. So they had a huge ceremony in the outfield. I think Brian McCann was leading the services for Carlos Beltran's glove. And so, I mean, that's the type of stuff that is really fun when a team is 64 and 32 and has a huge lead in their division, that you can have stuff like that. They're on the road in Baltimore this weekend, and then they go to Philly and Detroit upcoming week. I want to talk a little bit about trades, though. The trade market seems to be moving a little bit faster this year. A couple deals went down that were kind of blockbuster this past week. Arizona Diamondbacks, they're in contention in the National League West. They acquired JD Martinez from Detroit. What do you think about that deal?
I like the addition by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like, that JD Martinez should add a consistent bat in the middle of that lineup. You have a future core right there that's already performing. So, I mean, it's not like they shouldn't using their farm system to cash in. So I like the move by Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised. Arizona's been a team that, I mean, they're still a really young core, and I mean, they haven't been in the playoffs the last couple of years, so that it seems like they're really going for it this year. They got off to a really hot start in the National League West, and then they've kind of cooled off a little bit, but this kind of shows that they are in it to win it this year for the playoffs, at least in the National League West. And they're probably going to get a wild card at this point, the way the Dodgers are playing. But the Yankees also making a deal. They got Todd Frazier and Robertson from the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox getting more prospects in their rebuild. And Yankees look like they want to return to the playoffs as well this year.
Yep, I actually do like this move as well for the Yankees. That being said, I really do like it for the White Sox for getting Ian Clarkin in that deal. Yeah, I mean, just a good baseball deal in general. And this is exactly what the Yankees should be doing at this point, because I mean they are 100% in contention. They're not really sacrificing much in terms of the future for this team. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and one more thing on the Astros. Apparently, they're looking at Jaime Garcia as a potential pitcher. I see Yu Darvish rumors to the Dodgers or the Cubs. So we'll see what happens this upcoming week with the trade deadline coming up on July 31st. But let's move on to the NBA, and the silly season of the NBA offseason continued with a bombshell yesterday. Kyrie Irving, in reports, has asked for a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Question marks about whether LeBron's going to leave after next year. Seems like Kyrie doesn't want to be part of a rebuilding process in Cleveland. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
I mean, it's a huge mess. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. I mean, you have this team that, or a year ago, won the championship, and yet now they're pretty much on the verge of imploding. While I understand that it's hard to sometimes play alongside like LeBron James and how he can obviously like kind of like take over a franchise. I mean, at the same time, like as much as I think Kyrie is a superstar in this league, like we've already seen him try to carry teams on his own. Like even when LeBron James didn't play this past season, Kyrie struggled to carry this team on his own. I mean, like I'm not saying that they should trade Kyrie. Like maybe they just like wait it out, especially since they have him for like 2 more years on under contract. But that being said, like I mean, this also kind of loops back to their Dan Gilbert's cheapness and inability to re-sign David Griffin. I mean, David Griffin apparently was the one that was not only well liked by LeBron James, but also really well liked by Kyrie Irving, and in a sense was sort of the mediator between the two. And now that he's gone, and they've struggled to find any sort of person to replace David Griffin, time and again, they've really shot themselves in the foot. And it looks like this team, the 2016 NBA champions, essentially imploding very much on their own.
I'm absolutely stunned by this. It's just the level of diva and NBA players is absolutely ridiculous. No matter how many trades or how well you draft, ultimately, if players want to jump ship, they have so much weight in the front offices of NBA teams that none of that matters, it seems. If LeBron wants to leave next year, there's not much Cleveland can do. It is the way the game is played. You have to have a superstar player, and the stars know that they're so important to a team's success that they can basically say and do whatever they want, and teams just have to kind of scramble to adjust. And I heard some analysts saying this is all because Golden State is so great that all these players that want to win championships and add to their legacy, they have to find their own way to team up with other superstars and form these super teams to have a chance to compete against Golden State. And I mean, I don't know where Kyrie could potentially fit. I mean, it's the same sort of teams that I guess Chris Paul was rumored to go to, maybe San Antonio. But I mean, how many All-Stars are going to move from the East to the West and face off against Golden State in earlier rounds of the playoffs? Like, I don't understand why you would make that move. And I mean, for LeBron, I guess the Hollywood spotlight and having a potential influence with the Lakers, turning them back into glory days, I guess is alluring. But the Eastern Conference is going to be completely devoid of any talent at this point if this continues. Talked about Carmelo going potentially to the Houston Rockets. The Rockets angle to all this Cleveland drama is there's people have speculated that LeBron might potentially go to Houston if 2 of the 4 banana boat teammates, so-called, are with the Rockets. I mean, I don't know how to feel about that. Obviously, LeBron James would be amazing ad, but really the NBA is turning into a ongoing soap opera where every week it seems like there's another superstar that's linked to another team and is unhappy and wants out. It's really, I mean, if you're into the drama of the offseason, this is perfect.
I mean, I definitely am. So, I mean, I absolutely love it in a sense. I mean, I get people sort of like calling them divas in a sense, but it's not. I mean, it's hard to really call them divas when it's just like that's sort of a gendered term, and men can be just as emotional as women. These people are also worried about their careers and their legacies, and that's what a lot of NBA stars are judged on, you know. And for Kyrie, his big idol is Kobe Bryant, and in Kyrie's eyes, like he's never going to become the guy so long as LeBron James is there. And I don't know if LeBron James has ever given him any notice on whether or not he actually wants to leave, or is that's just a bunch of rumors to sort of like pressure Dan Gilbert to try to retool the team somehow. But I don't really know what's going through anyone's head anymore, and whether or not either Kyrie or LBJ really want to be staying in Cleveland at this point. I mean, it's very possible by the end of the only person that's left of the big 3 there is Kevin Love, which would have been pretty much a huge surprise back at the beginning of the summer, considering that, like, no offense to Kevin Love, but he was the weakest of the 3. At the end of the day, I find it entertaining. And not only that, you know, these people want to make decisions about their careers, and I'm not going to stand in their way. It's just, to me, it just doesn't make that much sense outside of just like him worrying about preserving his career. At the end of the day, it's his life and it's his career.
At some point, we talk about player loyalty, right? I mean, Kobe Bryant played his whole career with a team. Craig Biggio is a lifetime Houston Astro. I mean, is still value in that, or is that the way of the past?
I don't want to say there's no value in that. Like look at Dirk. Yeah, look at Dirk, look at Kobe, look at Tim Duncan. I mean, those are the most some of the most beloved players right now, specifically because of their loyalty. And again, like looping back to legacy talk, like I mean, like that's one of the best ways to ensure your legacy is like not only did you win championships, but you stayed with one team for your entire run. But let's also be honest here too. I mean, this is a business. You want to talk about player loyalty to teams, like don't teams then in and of themselves also owe loyalty to their players? I mean, like, make no mistake, most players would be traded on a dime, like either to like help with a loophole with the cap or just to make room to sign another player. There's no loyalty in the NBA, and there really is no obligation for loyalty in the NBA. Let's put it that way. And so I find that to be like kind of just a dated argument. If it can be done, it's sort of preferred in my mind, just because, I mean, like, I think it's still like a cool idea to have someone there for the long term. But I mean, like, just because, like, for example, like Adrian Beltre joined the Rangers when he was 30 doesn't mean I think any less of Adrian Beltre as a player. So I think at the end of the day, like, someone's play is going to speak for them the most, even for like players that have pretty much their entire primes with the entire team, but then all of a sudden decide to play for another one, like say like Dwayne Wade. He'll always be a Miami Heat player forever in my mind. So I mean, it's not the end of the world there in terms of like whether or not we lose player loyalty going forward. But it'd be something nice to have. But don't talk to me about player loyalty until teams show better sense of loyalty to their own players, you know?
Yeah, I mean, LeBron James leaving Cleveland for Miami, he put in his 9 years there, and then he just decided, I need to make a career change and I need to try to win a championship with some of my friends. And even Kevin Durant, he was vilely criticized for joining Golden State Warriors, but he put in his time in Oklahoma City. I mean, this Kyrie thing is like, oh, I don't like playing with LeBron. You've been to the finals 3 straight years. I don't understand how you can make that statement. I don't like playing with LeBron James. That doesn't make any sense. That just sounds like you have a level of ego that I want to be the best, and I don't care about winning. I don't care about the team that drafted me. I don't care about the fans that have bought my jersey. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like you look at going back to Kobe again. I mean, like Kobe had his fights with Shaq too. Even after they won 3 titles in a row and went to the finals 4 out of 5 years. Again, like I mean, we don't think any less of Kobe, even though he threw fits multiple times about like whether or not like his team was competing, whether or not he was getting the ball more. whether or not like he was the star of the team. Kobe isn't thought of any less just because he was someone that like, very much demanded the attention and the focus from everyone. I mean, obviously also his personal life isn't exactly great either, but I mean like Kobe is still like highly revered by most people. While I personally would love to see more players to be able to stick with teams together long term. Like for example, I mean, I would love Giannis to stay in Milwaukee for the rest of his career, just because like I think that's a sort of like franchise defining player that they haven't had in like 40 years since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar left for LA. But yeah, no, I mean, at the same time, it's a business. It's not only a business, but it's also, I mean, to some extent, yeah, it's definitely about ego. But I mean, like, is it not ego that kind of drives the NBA in the first place in terms of its entertainment value? Honestly, like, I mean, I don't know if we complain about this between each other, but like, I definitely complain to a lot of other people, or at least complain in my own mind about like the lack of personality in hockey, which is a sport I genuinely love watching at times, which is, and I think it's a genuinely amazing sport to watch, to spectate, but it's so hard to follow when everyone's kind of this stoic robot, and like someone that shows emotion like Alex Ovechkin gets sort of lambasted for it. We also complain about how the National Football League very much tried tamping down on player celebrations, shows of individuality. I mean, the NBA is all about players showcasing their individuality, and like this is pretty much the ultimate expression of it, with Kyrie rumored to have said like he'd rather be competing against LeBron than necessarily playing beside him. Like we complained about like how Kevin Durant leaving to the Warriors, while not necessarily a bad move in and of itself, was at the same time robbed the NBA of any sort of drama. This in and of itself adds more drama to it, and so I'm all for it, especially with the way that the playoffs went down.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I do think that Kobe and Shaq, although they each won championships after they broke up, if they would have stayed together, who knows how many they would have won in a row there in LA. But we got to move on. I want to mention briefly the Rockets owner, Leslie Alexander, announced that he's looking to sell the team. Obviously, the NBA is no more popular than it is now, and he bought the team for, I think, $200 million back in the mid-90s and immediately won those two championships. And now it's rumored his value could be over $2 billion. So he's cashing out. He's in his 80s now, and a lot of fans are scared because he's been a great owner. He's been willing to go after the big fish, always trying to win a championship. And new ownership, it's always going to be an uncertain situation. We look at Sacramento, Vivek Ranadive saved the team, but look at what he's turned that team into the last decade with the personnel and management moves he's made. So,
although that being said, I mean, like Vlade Divac has been like pretty decent recently, at least. I mean, this past draft he was pretty good. But yeah, I will also say this though. I mean, to add a little caveat to like how good like Leslie was, but he did also kind of push hockey out of the city of Houston by raising the price of the Toyota Center, because prior to that they used to have the AHL team there and the Houston Aeros, but they could, since that team was unable to afford staying in the building, they had to move out of Houston and out of the state. So that being said, that doesn't take away from the work he did as owner, I guess, of Houston Rockets.
Okay, let's move on to the NFL, and the Dallas Cowboys continue to make news in the offseason.
Oh man, this has been a crazy offseason. Let's start with the seemingly least crazy story, which somehow, if I told you that this would be the least crazy story, you would say that I'm crazy. But so apparently Lucky Whitehead had his dog stolen from him and held for ransom by some random dude, and Lucky Whitehead dog back. So I mean, I'd say like I'm just glad that Lucky Whitehead was able to get his dog back safe and sound. And whoever did that is such a POS. I mean, good Lord. I mean, that wasn't the craziest story, because the craziest story right now is what's happening with Ezekiel Elliot. Granted, like he's not the only one that's gotten in trouble with the law among Dallas Cowboys. I mean, like obviously Nolan Carroll is one who's gotten in trouble. I keep forgetting. I mean, David Irving got busted for pissing a little hot, although apparently that was not intentional on his part. Ezekiel Elliot, not only did he have the domestic violence investigation against him continue, and more than likely it was reported at the beginning of the week that he might still get suspended for one game for reasons I'm not entirely sure of. I mean, like, just because like the person ended up withdrawing her charges doesn't mean that she necessarily lied in the first place. I mean, a lot of people don't want to go relive that type of thing, or especially in cases where someone is like famous and rich versus the other person not. They usually are like, you know what, let's just settle out of court so that I don't have to deal with this, or are just like so intimidated by the legal team that the other person's able to afford that they just decide, you know, it's not worth fighting. But at the same time, it's sort of frustrating that they've been investigating this thing for a whole year, yet only now seem to be like deciding on like whether or not he did something. And if he did something, like, I mean, is one game necessarily acceptable? Especially if you're going to give 4 games to someone for pissing hot, either you commit to it or don't take a half-butted approach. Unfortunately for Zeke, that wasn't the end of his crazy week, because he then got into an altercation on Sunday with a DJ, and now there are conflicting reports about this. So one report that first came out was that he punched a DJ because said DJ was apparently harassing one of the female party goers that were part of his entourage. And then another report is saying that he didn't at all throw a punch at all, and that Zeke was not involved with it. He was just like, you know, at the club. I don't know what to believe. The only video that's shown is the DJ lying on the floor in pain. But then after that, Ezekiel got pulled over for speeding because he was going 100 miles per hour in a 70-mile-per-hour highway. And it's just, I don't know what to expect. Talk about it having a terrible week. But I mean, like, this guy's just, it seems to be putting himself in stupid situation after stupid situation. And it's just, I mean, I love Ezekiel. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, I mean, this team needs Zeke. He needs to be more careful, like at least with like his party going. I mean, like, he also got a little bit in trouble during the St. Patrick's Day parade, when he basically lifted up a woman's top, made her flash in public, which is, if that was just some random stranger, that could have been very easily like, you know, sexual harassment, you know, if not, it's like kind of sexual assault to some extent. But I mean, like, I don't know what the details for that one were. I feel like there's not enough information to thoroughly say that. I don't know what it is. Like, I wish he'd maybe like just hung out more with Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott, outside of possibly using a machine to sign autographs, doesn't get into this type of trouble. You know, I mean, maybe they have to start rooming together. I don't know. They have to start getting careful now, because I mean, this team is a team that should be competing for a championship this year. And then on top of that, obviously there's the issue with just like, you know, being a good person, you know. I mean, like, granted, like, just because someone speeds X amount over the speed limit doesn't make them a bad person. But I mean, like, obviously, like, you're not being very careful. I mean, if he got into a wreck, like, he could have easily put someone's life in danger, you know. I mean, he's got to be more cautious about other people's lives, and like not be so like kind of like self-focused, or else we're going to be more worried about the people he hurts, going to put in harm's way. So that's neither here nor there.
Does he remind you a little bit of Dez? Because Dez earlier in his career had his issues off the field, and didn't the Cowboys end up instituting a curfew on him, and they had an employee like follow him around to make sure he wasn't getting into trouble, that sort of deal?
A little bit, but I mean, like, with Dez, though, that always kind of had, I wouldn't say behavioral issues, but, you know, obviously in college, like, I mean, like, he missed his final year, I believe, just because of academic issues, or just like, I don't want to say Dez has always been, but like, Dez has had some tough times in his life. I don't want to say like there are excuses for that, but they at least sort of like explain he's had to work through those things, you know. And it's an extra thing for him to focus on, and it's something that he's done an amazing job of dealing with and being able to handle. I mean, like, yeah, he was immature and he did act that way a lot, but I mean, like, at the same time, for him at least, that wasn't so outside like sort of his scouting report back when he was drafted. It was like, yeah, we know that he does this, but we believe in the kid. And I mean, he paid off very well. And like, I mean, the fact that they were able to put their faith in Dez, and he just absolutely ran with the ball and did amazing work with that opportunity, I mean, speaks volumes to Dez as a person, and how unfair it was for him to be judged that way at the beginning of his career. But with Ezekiel, I mean, like, any like reports outside of obviously the possible domestic violence problems, and that only came out after the draft, if I remember correctly. And granted, like, the DV stuff was happening prior to it, but they were able to keep it under wraps or something like that before. Granted, I think Ezekiel will probably hopefully grow out of this. I think that, I mean, granted, this seems to have a lot of maturity issues written on it, but I mean, at the same time too, it's just like, why? It just doesn't make much sense at all for him to be doing this stuff outside of just sort of realizing he's a young millionaire. It's just completely just sort of surprising that Zeke is sort of like acting out in this way. But I mean, at the end of the day too, like, I mean, I know when I was that young, like I made mistakes similar to that. So it's not like, we're not similar to that, but like I've made silly mistakes too that, like, looking back on it, like just had no justification for that. And like I mean, I had it growing up. So I mean, it's not like it's because you have a solid upbringing, like not even solid upbringing, but like, you know, like a stable upbringing, I would say, in terms of just like having more control over outside forces when you're growing up versus not being able to. But I mean, at the same time, it's just it's frustrating. It's frustrating because Ezekiel just seems to be kind of gambling that. Hopefully Zeke can sort of take care of whatever issues are going on and just, like, you know, not harm anyone. Like that's my biggest fear really at this point.
Agreed. Let's move on to some college football news. It was Big 12 Media Day this past week in Dallas. Tom Herman of the Texas Longhorns made some headlines with some comments. He was talked a lot about the culture of losing the last couple of years, veiled shots at Charlie Strong. He also said that during, I guess, some of the drills, he paired off player against player, and the winners got crispy bacon and the losers got burnt toast and cold pancakes, which I don't know about you. That would motivate me. Nobody wants cold pancakes.
I mean, the media absolutely, for lack of a better word, ate it up. They,
that's true. He also said that he'd be open to potentially playing A&M as a non-conference game, which kind of turned heads because they haven't played in a number of years. Sure. And
that's been discussed before, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, it makes a lot of sense, especially since this program seems to kind of be missing a bit of a sense of purpose ever since A&M kind of left, which is sort of weird to say. But yeah, I mean, like, having that rivalry, especially at the end of the year, is a great way to sort of like keep focus, I feel. And something that's been really sorely missing from this team is just a lack of focus towards the end of the year.
I think having that game on your schedule, you talked about a rivalry game at home, because let's face it, when A&M's in town, Oklahoma would be a great rivalry game, obviously, but you're never going to play that at home. That's a neutral site in Dallas at the State Fair. So, I mean, when you're running out your Kansases and your Kansas States, it's not going to get the level of fan interaction and excitement as if like A&M was on the schedule. So definitely a right assessment by him.
But yeah, let's move on to shoutouts. First off, sad news, but rest in peace to Chester Bennington, lead singer of Linkin Park, who unfortunately took his own life past week at the age of 41. It was also on the day of Chris Cornell's birthday, who also took his life, unfortunately, 2 months earlier. More than likely, unfortunately, that probably weighed on Bennington's mind, especially since those two were incredibly close friends. And it's just, again, I feel like in the U.S. we don't do enough to really address mental health. I mean, like, and even people that supposedly like do. I have a friend of mine that past 2 years he's tried raising money for, you know, mental health causes, and I'm like, that's great, you know. But also, I mean, like, it should be all year, and I don't think this guy focuses on all year trying to advocate for mental health. And sometimes I wonder if it's just for show. And that's sort of the problem, is just like we don't do a good job of advocating for mental health all year round, even though, like, obviously mental health can strike at any time. And it's something that I struggle with doing too, is you know, being able to be a better advocate for that. But I mean, you know, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I think our generation, I think there's more of an awareness toward that, but yeah, there's still a long way to go, and definitely rest in peace. I mean, Linkin Park was I've been listening to their band since in high school, middle school even, so it's a huge loss. All right, other shout outs, Roger Federer, shout out to him for winning Wimbledon. The ageless wonder didn't lose a single set the whole tournament, so Roger Federer winning his 19th career major and winning Wimbledon, so shout out to him. Soccer shoutouts, MLS, Houston Dynamo. They signed a midfielder from Argentina, Tomas Martinez, as their third designated player. It's going to be a great signing, hopefully, for the Dynamo. They need that midfield playmaker. They've needed it the last 3 years, and hopefully he can provide that as a DP this past week, they still are winless on the road. They tied Minnesota 0-0. They had a lot of open chances in the first half, and they weren't able to capitalize on them. And they have played 10 of their 17 road games this year, and they still haven't won one. So that's not good. They have another shot later today against DC United, and they're the worst team in the East. So let's hope they can get that done. FC Dallas were off this week, but they had 3 players named to the All-Star team: Kellen Acosta, Hernan Grana, and Matt Hedges. So shout out to all those 3 players. Well deserved for FC Dallas, which is second in the West. They are playing in Montreal tonight against the Impact. Gold Cup news: the semifinals of the Gold Cup are set. USA is going to play Costa Rica tonight in Arlington in one semifinal, and Mexico plays Jamaica in the other semifinal in the Rose Bowl. But U.S. got a 2-0 win against El Salvador this past week, and Costa Rica squeaked by in their game. So that's going to be a good game tonight in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And also shout out to the 67,000 people at the NRG Stadium this past week for the Manchester United-Manchester City friendly. It was the first time that rivalry has been played outside of England. And another example of those people that say soccer will never be popular in the United States have no idea what they're talking about, because the amount of interest in those two teams just playing a preseason friendly at NRG Stadium was outstanding to see. Also, shout out to Andre Johnson, All-Pro, longtime Houston Texan wide receiver, that he will be the first member of the Texans Ring of Honor. And he will be honored on a November 19th game against the Arizona Cardinals. So shout out to Andre Johnson, one of my favorite players growing up as a fan of the Texans, and well-deserved. And he will be a future Hall of Famer. Also, shout out to Jordan Spieth, who at the moment we recorded this podcast, which is at 12:30 p.m., he was leading the Open Championship by 2 shots over Matt Kuchar. Jordan Spieth obviously has never won the British Open, so this would be a first time he's won that after he got second in 2015. And he's had his struggles, but this is great to see him up at the leaderboard. Brooks Koepka, who won the U.S. Open, is also 5 shots back at the time we recorded this. Dustin Johnson is 6 shots back at -3. And a lot of contenders up there. Ricky Fowler is 1 under. Rory McIlroy is 1 under. So we'll see what happens at the Open Championship. So I want you guys to visit our website, twonatesonsports.com. Also, like us on Facebook at Two Nates on Sports. Subscribe on YouTube as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music, where you'll get a notification as soon as we release our new episodes. Also, if you have any comments, suggestions, please email us at twonatesonsports@gmail.com. I'll talk to you next week, Nathan.
Talk to you later, man.